my beautiful friends. My name is Kim and I hope you're having a fabulous day. If you are interested in true crime stories like I am, I hope that you consider hitting that subscribe button. But either way, thanks for being here. Today we're going to be talking about 28-day-old Paris Talley. In the first month of her life, you are supposed to be cherished and protected. That newborn scent and the hugs and the kisses. Newborns are so helpless and they need mom and dad to protect them more than ever. Paris wasn't given that protection. She wasn't cherished. There are certain deaths that are so extreme that you cannot understand the logic, the mentality, the psychology. You cannot understand any of it. And this happens to be one of those stories. And I haven't even really tried that hard because this story is so bizarre, so awful. Let's talk about Paris, but first a word from today's sponsor. Thanks to Drift for sponsoring today's video. Drift is a sister company of Scentbird. I love them both equally. They are both amazing. Drift provides monthly subscription air care products. It is more than a car air freshener. It is a stylish piece of art with a stylish wood or stone finish. Do you have a stylish, cool car? Well, make it smell cool with Drift. A bucket of bolts? Well, at least it'll smell good with Drift. The prices are between $9 and $15 a month, so they are very affordable. Products are sustainable and scents are made from essential and fragrant oils. The scent I received this month was Groove. Smells of mountain greens and sugared citrus. Chef's Kiss. It is an amazing scent. The first month you will receive a bracket and the wood or stone scent. 30 days later, you will have a replacement of either the wood or stone scent portion. The subscription is very flexible. You can change your scent choice, your delivery frequency, or cancel your subscription at any time you like. You decide what is best for you. I typically go with the scent of the month, which features a new limited edition scent that is made to order, hence their sustainability model. The scent of the month is inspired by the season and the memories and emotions attached to it. I have yet to get one that I don't like. It creates a variety that you don't get used to, so not only your passenger will enjoy it, you will too. Make sure to use my coupon code Kimberly for 55% off at Drift. It's less than $5 for your first month. On August 29, 2005, China Arnold and her boyfriend Terrell Talley needed a night away from the kids. The couple had 3 boys that were school-aged, and then they shared a 38-day-old baby girl named Paris. Terrell's sister Leonda agreed to watch the kids so that they could have a night away. I got the kids, go out and relax. Fine. They left the house around 6:30 p.m. and they purchased a bottle of Bacardi 151 that they took to the park across the street from where they lived. All of them, including Leonda, lived in the apartments in Parkside Homes. It was kind of a aged housing complex in Dayton, Ohio. That's where Paris was also born on August 2nd, 2005. Both of her parents had been born and raised in Dayton. The night they took their bottle of Bacardi 151, they were not messing around. They were like, I don't have any kids. We're getting 151 tonight. They took it to the park and things started out really good. They were having a nice night away from the kids. Unfortunately, the longer they drank, they argued about everything and nothing. But as it turns out, there were a couple of things worth discussing, namely the paternity of Paris. There was a rumor that China was having an affair while attending Sinclair Community College to become a counselor. If only her night hadn't ended this way that it did, she may have made something of herself because she really was trying. I won't hold you in suspense. After Paris dies, it is proven that the baby did belong to Terrell Talley. On the other hand, At some point in this twisted nightmare of an evening, Terrell admits to the new mom, China, that he'd been having an affair with the neighbor lady. Is Bacardi 151 a truth serum? Maybe the booze help with honesty? But I think Terrell was just trying to be cruel by admitting to having an affair with the neighbor. Eventually, they drove back to the apartments, and China drove even though she was considered intoxicated, like the 151 was hitting her. Fortunately, they didn't have a long drive. After they got back to the housing complex between 9:30 and 10, they continued to argue. Terrell said it got physical, and she bit his lip, so he slapped her. And after this, they basically just parted ways, with China going back to her apartment where Leonda was. Leonda later testified that it was around 11 p.m. and she took her kids home to her place and put them to bed. Terrell went with his neighbor Jason to an apartment they called the Bootleg to buy some beer. When Leonda came back out from putting her kids to bed, she saw that China was trying to drive off in her car. She stopped her from driving and took her to go get some cigarettes from the closest store. China may have indulged in the sauce a little bit too much, because on the way back, China had Leonda pull over fast so she could vomit out the door. They got back about 40 minutes later. China went straight back to her apartment. She is not feeling good. She wants to lay down. By that point, Terrell was hanging out at an apartment that he and another person sold substances out of. They called it The Spot. They had nicknames for all these places, which is both cool and disturbing at the same time, but anyways. Leonda and Marcelina Perry, who both lived in the complex, later testified that around 11:45 p.m., Leonda went to China's apartment to check on her and the kids because Terrell had asked her to. It sounds like Terrell, they were fighting, but he still cared about her and his 28-day-old baby. China was asleep on the couch, and the infant Paris was in her car seat next to another couch. She was just sleeping away in her car seat. Leonda checked on Paris, who seemed to be sleeping well and was breathing fine. She saw no issues. Once again, later she said that she did not see anything wrong with Paris. If there was, she would have called 911 immediately. She locked the apartment after herself, and then she took the keys over to Terrell at The Spot. The next morning, August 30th, China and Terrell showed up at Children's Medical Center in Dayton at 7:15 a.m. in the emergency room with their daughter, Paris. The doctors worked very hard on baby Paris, but on intake, her temperature was only 95 degrees. She had no pulse, respirations, or blood pressure. To be clear, the baby's heart was not beating, but they did try to revive her. Babies can be very resilient, so they really tried, but after 15 minutes of absolutely no heart activity, they declared baby deceased. When examining her in the emergency room, the doctor found burns, but not like you would get from like scalding water or a cigarette burn. He really was just dumbfounded. He really didn't know where these burns had come from, but he identified them as burns, but there was something that he'd never seen before. He couldn't put his finger on exactly what the burns were. Terrell was in the room just sobbing, just crying so hard, loudly, while China was kind of crying quietly. The burns were talked about, and China shouted out that her baby was not burned and her skin was just peeling. Knock it off with this burn talk. One thing that the staff found very strange was the baby was dressed in a clean nightgown, but considering the burns on her, there should have been skin and seepage on the gown, also with apparent burn marks on the gown. When asked initially by the hospital doctors and the staff what had happened, they told them when she got home at 2 a.m., she changed the baby's diaper, warmed up a bottle for her. However, the baby wouldn't eat. She said Paris felt warm, so she laid her down in the bassinet with a fan on her. When she woke up that morning, Paris wasn't acting right, so she changed her diaper and got her ready. So hence she had a new outfit on. After getting the 3 other kids ready and on the school bus, they brought Paris to the hospital. When the police arrived to talk to the pair, they were taken to the police station. We have some questions. This is not making sense. Contrary to what she said at the hospital, now she told the police what I outlined in the beginning of her arriving home at 9:30, between 9:30 and 10 p.m. that night before. After changing the baby's diaper, she laid her down on the couch, put the baby back on her chest, and then she fell asleep. China said when she woke up in the morning, Terrell was sleeping on the couch with her, but she did not know where Paris was. She thought Terrell had probably put Paris in her bassinet, which was upstairs. But except she did not mention Leonda babysitting the kids so her and Terrell could go to the park. So no Leonda at all. Terrell, on the other hand, said he arrived home to China's apartment between 3 and 4 a.m. and laid down on the small couch. After sleeping for a bit, he moved to the large couch where China was sleeping. When he woke up in the morning, he found the baby dead, face down on a large couch in the corner. And what's even more scary than that is they didn't call 911. They took the baby to the emergency room. I find that very interesting, but whatever. However, while China and Terrell were being interviewed at the police station, the investigators were out at the complex, her apartment complex, executing a search warrant and interviewing people. One of the people was Leonda, who gave them the info about the night before. Until this point, neither China or Terrell had even mentioned their time away. They didn't mention going to the park. They didn't mention Leonda babysitting. They just completely left that part out. While they completed the search of the apartment, they were looking for the source of the burns. They didn't know exactly what they were looking for, but was hoping that with the search something would pop up and they would be able to find it. But they had no idea what to look for, in all honesty. The lead detectives learned from the coroner that the burns had been caused by some type of thermal injury. They still didn't see anything in the house that created the burns that looked familiar to them. The burns were clearly defined, and some areas were severely burned, while other parts were spared entirely. For example, her full back was spared. So they looked for a cooking tin, a heating pad, or something rectangular that could have caused the burns. The officer said they must have walked through the kitchen past a microwave tons of times that day, trying to figure out what the source of the burns were from. However, the police did find a plastic baby bathtub upstairs with cloudy water with what looked like sediment in it. The material was collected and tested. When in the police interview, China was confronted with the information that Leonda was watching the kids, and China just basically pivoted and added that to her story. She explained the part about she and Terrell going to the park, arguing and coming back, etc. The only difference was she said she fed the baby a bottle when she got home. Paris felt hot, so she laid her down. She then repeated the story about getting up at 2:30 a.m. to give the baby another bottle and later going to the hospital. She changed a lot of her story in the beginning, but she did eventually admit she'd been at the park, had been drunk on Bacardi 151, and argued with Terrell over this. By the time of their third interviews on August 30th, 2005, the police knew that China had been seen outside on her porch at 4 a.m., that she had argued with Terrell earlier in the evening, and that the plastic bathtub of water that had been found in her apartment, China did try to explain the bathtub of water by saying she had given the baby a bath at noon and just didn't dump the water. I'll give you another spoiler. The sediment was full of translucent pieces of skin. The skin and sediment matched to the DNA taken from Paris Tully. I should let you know that the medical examiner had ruled that Paris's time of death was between 1 a.m. and no later than 3:15 a.m. Remember, China told police that she was asleep by 2:30 or just after, but directly after feeding her baby. She originally denied being on the porch and then admitted to being out on the porch later, that she was out there at 4 a.m. Apparently, she was waiting for Terrell to come back home. Then she just stepped right out on the ledge and told police investigators that she was awake and waiting for Terrell because he had taken Paris with him when he left. Now we have a completely new story. When asked why she had not said anything about this earlier, China stated that she loved Terrell and was protecting him. However, she did not respond when the police asked her about Terrell having handed her a burned baby when he returned. She had no answer. Basically a deer in the headlights. At the end of the day, Terrell Tully was allowed to leave the police station, and China Arnold was arrested for child endangering because she was apparently the only one home at the time of the baby's injury. So this business about Terrell taking the baby and bringing her back was just basically China trying to throw Terrell under the bus. The woman is something else. At that time, the coroner still had no idea how the baby's death had been caused, other than it was due to an elevated temperature caused by thermal injuries. China was released from jail a few days later. At some point during the interviews, Terrell said that China told him several times that if he hadn't cheated on her, his baby girl would still be alive. He was looking to her for answers about what happened because Paris was with her, in her care all night. Again, China is telling Terrell the baby would be alive if you didn't cheat on me. That is completely messed up. On May 18, 2006, the investigators went back to the apartment even though the family had moved and left the microwave behind, so they seized that. This was when the medical examiner had become aware of the death by microwave. The coroner also said the burn pattern on Paris was consistent with the heating element in that microwave. The heating element was on the roof or top of the microwave. Paris's DNA was found in that microwave seized that day. Does it get more messed up in this case? I think not. Disgusting. China was charged with aggravated murder of Paris. We don't know much about her childhood or her past. She has at least one sister named Michelle Wilkinson that did testify to what kind of person she was. Also, according to Ohio records, China was convicted of abduction in 2000 and then forgery in 2002. It seems that by the time Paris was born, she was going to school and trying to improve herself. In the first trial, it came out that when China was in jail, she allegedly confessed to her cellmate, Linda Williams, that she put Paris in the microwave because Terrell had cheated on her. Linda testified to that. The medical examiner had worked on another case in Virginia where an infant had the same injuries as Paris. The doctor said that Paris was placed on her back in the microwave for at least 2 minutes, probably longer. He described it as her cooking Paris from the inside out. He said the baby reached temperatures of 107 to 108 degrees. How painful would that have been? The defense said that Terrell also had access to the baby and could have committed the crime. However, just as the defense rested, Terrell told the Dayton Daily News that his son told him he took Paris out of the microwave after a neighborhood child put her in it. So Terrell's trying to cover up for China. China was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. However, the appellate court overturned the entire thing based on exculpatory evidence that Terrell gave the news. There was a second trial later that was about Linda Williams. The defense said that they weren't able to question or find her before the first trial. However, in the second trial, when Linda testified, she said that China told her something a bit different. According to her, China killed Paris because she was afraid Terrell would leave her if he found out that Paris wasn't his. But as I mentioned earlier, Paris was his. So she changed her testimony, which the defense jumped on immediately. The boy, who supposedly put the baby in the microwave, according to Terrell, his mom came in and testified that he wasn't even home at the housing complex that day. China was convicted of aggravated murder again. But because of Linda changing or recanting her testimony and the defense wasn't allowed to bring in 2 witnesses, there was more misconduct. That's right, her conviction was overturned again. Like, talk about 9 lives. In May of 2011, China went to trial for the 3rd time. The defense again pointed at Terrell. The prosecution showed how China said she was alone with the kids, and there was proof Terrell was at the spot. Again, China was found guilty of aggravated murder. For sentencing, they had an evaluation done on her, and she had an average IQ, no mental illness, and no medical issues. She was once again sentenced to life without parole, which is where she still is to this day and where she needs to be. And hopefully we are done with these trials. She has cost so much money, unnecessary tax money, to get her exactly where she needs to be. This case is absolutely unreal. I just cannot believe how China thought that hurting her 28-day-old baby for either her boyfriend cheating on her or because Paris might not be his is a reason to microwave your child. There is so many other ways. Like, how does one mind even go in that direction? I want to kill my baby, so I'm going to put my baby in the microwave? What the? And what kills me is that she does this to Paris, and then she goes out on the porch and waits for him to come home at 4 a.m. Not that it even matters, but by 2:30, she would have slept off most of the booze, so we can't blame it that she was totally wasted. When I first heard this story and looked into it, I was expecting that she was drunk and made a mistake, but it was so much more worse than anyone could ever imagine. I don't know much about Terrell, his lifestyle or criminal history. I know that he was trying to cover it up for China, which is really, really crappy, but I can say one thing, that this is something he has to live with. And I kind of feel bad because essentially, whatever angle you look at it, it was because of him, you know? So, I don't know. I'm torn. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this case. Please leave a pink heart in the comments for baby Paris, 28 days old. Just heartbreaking. Again, thank you Drip for partnering with me on today's video. Check out the link down below. Thanks to all my channel members and my Patreons who continue to support me. If you would like early access to new videos or decide the cases I cover next, you can do so by clicking the join button from your desktop, or there is a video in the description box on how to do it from your phone. Well, if you guys have made it to the end, you guys are rock stars, and I love you to death. There are more true crime videos in my Crimey Cases playlist for you to check out. Stay safe, my loves, and remember, if you see something, say something. Bye.